Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Sean. Happy
Welcome,
Monday.
everybody, inside the huddle.
Yes, welcome, everybody.
Glad you're all here on what is now halfway through the month of September, in case anybody's keeping track.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I love that sign behind you, by the way. Rise and thrive.
Rise and thrive.
Love that. It's perfect.
I think my wife gave that to me.
Yeah, I like that. Tigger, that's a perfect. Have you been called Tigger before? Was that like your personality?
No. I have a special place for Tigger.
You do,
And
yeah.
I think it's very representative, or I wish everyone would adopt Tigger's attitude.
Yeah.
You guys remember the Tigger song?
You have to sing it for us.
I'm going to. It's going to be terrible, but there's a message at the end. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. Their tops are made out of rubber, and their bottoms are made out of springs. They're bouncy, 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 fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Every single one of you is the only one of you that's ever existed, ever will exist. What a glorious thing to be alive. To know you, Steve. In the history of the whole world, you've only existed right now, and I get to be here for it.
Yeah.
You are the only Tigger that's you.
Yeah. Well, isn't that powerful? I mean, I think of all the friends on this call and the people we've worked with over the years and the people that have inspired us. And I mean, all of us stand on the shoulders of giants, don't we? And in this moment in time, and there'll be a future when we're gone for people to do the same thing, and the cycle will repeat itself. And I just feel lucky to be around people like yourself, positive people that see, one thing about Tigger too is the if there isn't an object that's more about optimism and what's possible than
Right.
Tigger, I don't know what is.
Just the definition for him. Well, the wonderful thing about me is me.
Yeah.
That's true of every one of us. We spend so much time saying negative things instead of celebrating the miracles we are.
Well, the world's designed in such a way as to remind you of what you can't do. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, that is just how it is. So anyway.
By the way, today, guys, is kind of I think we said, Steve, more of an open mic, right?
Well, I thought we would try. Yeah. I've got some, it was really nice meeting a lot of you at the Impact Day at One Paseo. It's nice to have a couple of folks come up who hadn't met me before. Maybe they're in Sean's office. Maybe I don't know what office some of these folks were in. I'm sure you get that too, Sean. Well, you're the guy that's on the huddle. And there was one gal that said, I've got some great ideas of things I'd like the huddle to incorporate in future episodes. So look forward to hearing from that person who I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. But I thought it would be a good thing to, and every now and then, even in my sales meetings, I do an AMA, which is Ask Me Anything, and allow the team to, rather than hear from my prescribed presentation, go a cappella here for a second and talk about things that are impacting you today. That allows us to think about future episodes. But sometimes the most powerful episodes are the most powerful sales meetings I've ever had, were ones that were completely unscripted, and you let the agents drive their needs and create a safe space. Yeah, I've been thinking about that same thing too, and I'd like to know more about this. And so that's what we talked about. And so let's get at that.
And the truth is, the room is always smarter than any one individual.
Yeah.
This being our room here.
Yeah.
So definitely unmute or go into the comments. But today we'd love to have you guys. I'm going to bring something in from what you just said, Steve, that's especially important in this business. This is a business that you can generate a lot of success. But we were talking about who we're around and the choices we make, and how the world is not set up to remind you how good you are. It's set up to remind you what you can't do.
Right.
Part of that comes out of the best intentions of your friends and even family. There's this thing called the unspoken agreement that you have with your closest friends, that you haven't said it, but you've all tacitly agreed or implicitly agreed to be the same. It's non-threatening that way. And when one reaches out to improve themselves, everyone verbally says, you go, Steve, you go, man, we're behind you all the way. But the subconscious part of them is not and does not like it, because then you have to look in the mirror at yourself and say, well, if Steve's doing it, why aren't I? And it's either because I'm not willing to work hard enough, or there's something wrong with Steve, and I'm going to make it about Steve.
Yeah. Or even yeah, and if you go deeper, our primate brain, because really we're the high primate on the planet, right? Times when I was a kid, my parents, just their reflex response, and I'm sure some of us on this call have done the same thing. When someone hasn't done something, or when someone has done something, a child or a friend or a loved one that hasn't lived up to our expectations, the reflex response for most human beings is, why would you do that? Instead of saying, help me understand, what is it that, let me share with you a different path, we don't do that. And one is uplifting, and one is about seeking course correction without judgment, and the other is all about judgment. And and this is how we're hardwired. I think we're hardwired to judge things, and I think that does put a cap, or it takes a while for most of us to break through this stinking thinking that builds over us over time, until we start figuring out for ourselves that what's the old saying? If you're out at sea, you could pray for a miracle to come rescue you, but you best start rowing for the shore.
Start rowing.
And so I think that's when we realize that's when we start to break through and tap into what's possible for us.
Right. That's the upside of this. Isn't that it exists? There's negative things in the world. It's realizing and then deciding what you want to do about it.
Yeah.
This is a really uphill battle. Again, we've chosen an industry that it's simple to understand, but it's not at all easy to do. And not to get too deep on this, but I mean, you're working against millennia of hardwiring, right? The single most important drive in any animal that's alive is to stay alive. That's why we're still here when 99% of the things that have existed are gone from this planet.
Yeah,
it's a huge will to live. And one of the early things that we learned, like you said, as the highest primates, was don't get separated from the pack. If you got separated from the pack, it was probably going to be fatal. If you got injured, if you got sick, if anything went wrong. So you never wanted to be separated or ostracized or stand out or any of the ways that we translate it now where you're different. So that's been going on for tens of thousands of years. And then you get, probably by the age of 6, you were told 500 times by people you trusted, don't talk to strangers. Then you went into real estate, where all day we tell you, you need to go talk to more strangers and differentiate yourself. And it goes against everything that's been hardwired into you.
My father is an immigrant to this country. And I think about this because I think of my own dream. So much of who we are is a reflection of the ones that loved us and raised us, right? The old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mm-hmm. And there are things about my dad when I was growing up that I thought, I don't ever want to be like that. And then I find myself more and more like my father as I age. So it really, there is something to that. And I think about my dad, who was the ultimate risk taker, someone who left his family to seek a better life for himself. And in doing so, created a better life for me. I think of how lucky I am to live in the United States. And most of us on this call, we're here just by the sheer luck that we were born here. We could have been born in sub-Saharan Africa. We could have been born in parts of war-torn Africa, India. Just saying how lucky you are to be here. And I think of my father, who immigrated to the United States. And when I decided I was going to chuck away the education I had to get into real estate, he thought I was nuts. Why would you do that? You need to do this. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. When I decided to leave Detroit, move to Colorado, he thought I was nuts. How, you don't know anyone out there? Why would you do that? Why would you do? And yet I'm following the same path he was on. Mm-hmm. And I can remember when he visited me, he taught me 2 lessons when I was in Denver before I moved to California. And he came into my real estate office, and I had a bunch of plaques, and some of the agents that know me and know this story, then we'll just go back to the team. But I remember him walking into my office, and I was rookie of the year, and I had manager this and manager that, and number this, number that. And he looked up at my wall, and he goes, son, this is really interesting what you've done here. He goes, but you know, and it was just a weird thing. He goes, but, and he goes, they wrap fish in yesterday's newspaper. It's not what you've done in the past, it's what you're doing now that matters. And he just saw something in me, like I was wrapping myself around the success that I've had, and he didn't want to see me again. He's teaching me to just keep thinking forward. And what you did yesterday matters, but what matters more is what you're about to do today. And I've never forgotten that. And then I remember my dad telling me one just last comment was when he left to go back home for his first visit to visit me in Denver. He said, son, I don't know how you pulled this off, but he said, I guess that's why you're where you're at and I'm where I'm at. And I thought long and hard. I've never asked, what did you mean by that? But I think he meant to say, this is what I'm stuck because I've stopped those ambitions. Somehow I've stopped pushing forward and you keep chasing things. And that's why you're where you're at today. And it was a way for my father to tell me, I think he was proud of me. My dad's still around, by the way, but I remember those comments. And you think about as an adult, now as the person that sits in front of you is a 58-year-old guy, what people that love us say about us or say to us matters still. And it can imprint on you. It can hold you back or it can build you up. And, you've got to find a way past all of that and look for the meaning and the lesson and know that my dad telling me, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Is he knows that I'm about to embark on a challenge. The ones that love you know you're about to go down something that's very difficult. And they don't know how to support you other than to try to protect you. And the protection comes as a cap. It comes, they put a ceiling on. Isn't that funny?
It's true.
Yeah.
I was thinking about actually this morning certain parts in my life and realizing sometimes we'll ask ourselves why. Why am I this right now? Why am I doing this? Why do I have this? And the 100% absolute truth is because you chose it. Sometimes not consciously, and sometimes that can be a scary thought, but it's also such a massively empowering thought. You choose everything in your life. So look around at your life. The things you like, great choice. The things you don't like, choose something else. But it gives you all the power, which is really what we want, even though it's scarier than hell to have that much power. I mean, that really is, if you think about it, really scary.
It's like, what brings you joy? What brings you joy? And then what do you have to do to manifest that, right? This thing we do that's called real estate, it's just a vehicle. It's a vehicle to help us get to the vision we have for ourselves, the mission we have for ourselves. And that's all it is. That's all it is. So
it's a beautiful way to get there, though.
Oh, yeah, it is. To help people.
We help people. Right. It's just such a phenomenal calling. But it's work.
Who else wants to? So what is it, team, those of you on the call, that you would like to share or any questions that you have for Sean and I about anything, about how your business is being impacted, about maybe how your business planning, about maybe what you'd like to see as we start to make the turn into 23. Let's open the floor up to you all and let you share your stories or your ahas. That to me would be hugely beneficial. And don't be shy. We've been doing this now. We keep getting the same 28 to 32 people. We've been doing this now for how long? Well, it seems like a year or more. I don't know. It seems that way. But who would like to share? We all know each other. We should be comfortable. Come on.
I'll share something.
There you go. Thank you.
I spent the weekend listening to the Tony Robbins World Summit. And I've been kind of off track probably for 20 years because I had kids and, done that thing. And I just decided, hey, it's time to kind of get back on track. And when I used to pay close attention to him and those type of things, I was very productive. And I didn't realize how far I got off track with life, and kind of like how you guys were talking about the choices, and you get busy with the kids and you get busy with life, and then that all steers you in a different direction. And listening and attending his webinar over the weekend, I'm like, we do and he pushes a lot about choice. those choices. And if you're going down a path where you're not happy, or you reflect on your past and you see yourself getting off track, it's a matter of just making that choice, getting back on track, and doing the things that you really enjoy, and making that change. So I appreciate what you guys were bringing up there this morning, talking about that, and that's me. There's so many people that get stuck in the rut, or you start hanging around just a negative friend, and you don't even know it until you're sunk in that path that they're, with them. And you really got to remind yourself every day, where you want to be, and stay on track. And one of the big things that I haven't done for 20 years probably is write down my goals. He was stressing how important it is to write down those goals, because until you write it down, it's just out there floating around, and you're not going to commit to it. But when you write them down, it's a lot easier to commit to them. But yeah, there's so much to learn. And the last thing I'll leave you with, which he left us with, is because of the negative world that we do live in, you really got to take it upon yourself every day, at least 20, 30 minutes to focus on what you want and the things that are around you, what kind of life you want to live, and reflect on those goals and stay on track. Because every part of the day we get all this negativity, all these distractions and whatever, and it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole. But reflect every day on your success and your past and the good things, and try to program your mind into what you really want in life, and stick with those goals. It's very important.
So glad you shared that, Larry. And that Tony Robbins had so many good things, but the best part of him, in my opinion, is that it's all about being purposeful every single day. Yes. Don't go into autopilot, man. It's our life that we get to choose. Right. And if we don't, someone else will choose for us. Somebody somewhere has a goal for the day. And if we don't, they'll take us down their goal, which may not be anything close to what we want.
And the thing I heard, Larry, is that, two things. What you think about expands. So if you're around people that are giving you these type of thoughts, and that's what you're thinking about, that just expands. And the other is the importance to stay learning based, to always be looking for, you're either ignorance based or you're learning based as a human being. There's no in between. An ignorance based person, by the way, by definition, is someone who says, yeah, I know all I need to know about that, and there's nothing more to know. And a learning based person is, I think I got a pretty good understanding of that, but there's always something that I can take from that. That's why whenever we've gone to training events, or we've heard a speaker maybe talk about the same topic, you can hear it differently a second or third time around. You can't believe you missed something that this person has shared in their speech over and over and over again that you didn't hear the first time, but you got the third time. So it's really important to remain learning based, and to surround yourself with high-minded people.
That's right.
Yeah.
I just had that happen when I was at Summit with Tom Ferry. He said something that he has said probably every get together, and it hit me for the first time. He said, "Choose your heart," which goes right down this path. It's hard to be healthy. It's also hard to be out of shape and unhealthy. It's hard to be successful. It's hard to be dirt poor. They're all hard. You get to choose which hard you want to live, and the rewards that go with it. Choose your heart. He probably said that 100 times, and it never hit me until this time.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good point. It's a life truth. There are things that you know, and that's one of them.
Right. Or a question, or an interesting thing going on. Our tight-knit group of quiet people.
No, come on.
Well, while they're thinking, I'll share one with you, Steve, that you brought up about dads.
Yeah.
And I think I've been lucky. I've always had people in my life that pop the balloon. My wife does that now, right? To keep you from being too much about past success. My dad was freaking brilliant at it. And back then, I was a very competitive shot putter. I mean, I was trying to make the Olympics. I was at a level that was really, I'll say really high, but really messes with your head. When you start achieving those kinds of levels, you start walking around like you're different.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes with it. It just comes with it. I saw it in others, and it happened to me. And I'd come home, and my dad would watch me for a day or so with this attitude. And one day I'm just walking through the living room, and he says, "You know that there's like 1 billion people in China that don't even know you're alive." All right, there we go. Back to normal. That's right. You ain't no more special than anybody else.
Yeah. That's a great. Well, I think my father was always that person too for me. Someone who was just grounded, not a person who was trying to impress anyone but himself.
Right.
And,
right.
And I've tried to be the best version of that as I can. That comes, by the way, you can perceive people like that to be not as sensitive, to be, self-contained, kind of standoffish. People that are just good within their own skin don't have a need to be loved by others. And I would see that in my father, and I would see that he didn't have a lot of friends really that I thought that I had. Like I would come home with 12 of them, and I can't remember my dad bringing home anything but 2 ever. He was that person. He was really good in his own skin and didn't need anyone to affirm for him where he stood in the world. And I'd like to be more like that. As I continue to age here, I'd like to get more and more comfortable, because that's what, at the end of the day, when you know who you are and what you are, that is your magnet. It actually attracts people to you. And somebody who doesn't know, isn't deliberate, doesn't quite understand what their path is. There's nothing inspiring about that.
All of this is why so often we bring up with everybody here and in our offices, have you written that letter? Do you have that 3-year goal? Do you have that picture of who it is you want to be? Because the only way to become that is to have the picture of it and know that this is the person I want to be in all facets. Real estate's a very interesting job. When I'm working with agents, we talk about this is like being a cop. It's not a 9-to-5 job. A real estate agent is a real estate agent 24/7. So it's not, here, let's do this one thing better and then you'll make more money. And we just learned how to turn the screw differently. Whatever you do to become a better person will make you better in your real estate. And whatever you do to become better in real estate will make you a better person. It's such a holistic type of role that we have and everybody we interact with.
Yeah, for sure.
It's beautiful. I can't think of another job like this. It's such a passion, such a great job.
The people we look up to and respect role models so many things for us. I mean, I talked about my dad a minute ago. You can talk about, last week we talked a little bit about all the negativity. And oh, by the way, that's not going to go anywhere as the Fed's about to meet and talk about interest rate hikes, and they're probably heading north of 0.75%. So there'd be more. The media is going to keep pounding away. And is this it for real estate, and so on? So that's not going anywhere. It may even get amped up a bit. But when you were talking last week about the negativity, about the press, about whether it's Compass, about the market, about just about anything in the world, but particularly about our business. And those two things are what's going on in real estate and what's going on with Compass. I had this thought, as someone who came to Compass early on in San Diego, think like from pretty much from day one. Mm-hmm. I remember and I've heard this story, I've shared this when I would watch Robert talk about his vision speech about why he was building Compass and what the values are and how to help. His value is to help everyone find their place in the world, because he's never felt like he had a place. And then I started to think about, the challenges that we faced, like every other real estate company out there in a market that's contracting or a market that is in a shift, with an economy, with inflation, with the reality of life. Every company's facing this. We're not unique. Every company has to face this challenge. And then I thought, this is true. And whatever is true about Compass, whatever anyone would say about Compass, the fact is, if we find ourselves in any trouble at all, why is that? It's because one person thought he would try something different. He was brave enough to go out and secure the funds in the manner in which he did, We're talking $1 billion. And in essence, give that money back to the people, give it back to the agents to help them build their business here, to invest in them, to invest in having the best staff, to invest in having the best engineers, to invest in having the best officers. And so, like every great idea, you find out okay, well, that's going to work, that's not going to work. Because I will tell you, a 33-year veteran of this business, what's great about companies is the minds that are around Robert, the brains that are around him, have no legacy in the industry. What's
dinosaur DNA?
The flip side of that is they might not see some of the road closed signs as fast as people who've been in the business for a while. But they're going to get there. We're going to get there. And I got to thinking about what a wonderful thing it is to be a part of a company that has the courage, that was built upon one thing and one thing only, building an organization that truly is focused on helping the agents be better at what they do and create a company that's better at supporting them. And if we take shots in the media because we find ourselves having to work our way through, okay, what we can and can't do, because that's where we started, then so be it. And so that's one way of looking at it. And then to embrace the challenge, to embrace the challenge for your business. Your customers, they're sitting there today and they're seeing the market change. They're seeing the homes take a little bit longer to sell. Yet I saw something on Keeping Current Matters. The number of showings, and I haven't verified this, but the number of showings are above pre-pandemic levels. They're still very, very high. We're still selling houses, but it's going to take a little bit longer as we move into a more normal market. This is we're heading into just a cycle market. And yet, your job now is to do what Robert's inspiration was for me, is to find the positives of I've got the football. This is what's going to happen. It's not going to be the same, but that's okay. Yes, the house isn't going to sell in a few minutes or a week. It's going to take 30 to 60 days to sell. That's normal. In a normal cycle market, that is what we would see. What's not normal is when you take a listing and you put it in the MLS and it's sold within 5 minutes. That's not normal. And so this is what we've been accustomed to. And it's a conversation you have to have more frequently in a market to help your clients feel better and good and positive. Again, going back to the expectations, that is your responsibility now. And you have to bring it in a positive tone. Just as I looked at, all this negativity, in fact, what's the positive about where I'm at today? The positive, I'm with, I think, the best real estate company in the world because of the leadership and the vision and where we're going.
You could not have said that better, Steve.
And I think that goes back to that thing where you say what you focus on expands, right?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at these positive things like you're saying, and I think that's something that would be really cool to do on Mondays is kind of look at the market and see what's going on positively in the market to give us some verbiage to be able to talk to clients. Because we do get a lot of negativity, you'll be touring somebody and they'll say, oh my gosh, that house has been on the market 14 days. Isn't that a long time? And so it's those things of being able to go, oh, well, pandemic, that's actually normal. You know what I mean? For things to be on the market that long.
Great.
So, but it's really awesome that you guys said that, because that was the one thing that did really inspire me this morning when you said that. I was like, yeah, what you think about expand. So if we all as realtors are focusing on that, positivity, then we're going to see a lot more of that even in our clients and stuff, with them being educated about the market and what it's normally, you know what I mean? What normally does. So.
Great point, Christina. And that point well taken too, because Sean and I can start to incorporate the positives that we see, just like the showings being up pre-pandemic levels. We know buyers are still out there. Buyers are still buying houses. But before we shift real quick, in the chat, I'd like to know, let me ask the group, what do you think you get paid to do as a real estate person?
Did you see the question in there? There's a great question in the chat.
No, let's see.
Cheyenne's saying, I'm having a hard time getting my business planning goals written because for the last 2 years, I haven't hit my goals.
Right.
Which happens. And then it's like, well, why create this? It's not working, or I'm doing something wrong.
It's all the more.
That happens to a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think in Cheyenne's, speaking to that question, it's who do you have? Who are the 5 people around you at any given moment supporting you in your, like, who knows about your goals, number one? And who are the 5 people? It could be a colleague, it could be me, your sales manager, it could be Sean, it could be someone else, it could be an outside coach. How well do these 5 people understand what your goals are, and what are they doing to support you? There's a 3-foot rule that is really important when you have goals and you're not achieving them, and that is simply this: that when you are spending a moment working on your goals, whether it's goal planning, whether it's prospecting, whether it's working with clients, whether it's solving their problems, when you're doing that thing that is about building your business or about working towards your business plan, you don't let anyone within 3 feet of you, especially on the task side of it, if they're not there to support you in it. So when you're sitting there working on your goals and Sean Purcell walks up and says, "Hey, Cheyenne, you want to go grab some coffee?" And you're thinking, well, yeah, man, that sounds better than making these calls. Sure. You don't let him in. He doesn't get to come in. So you're committing that no one gets near me. No one gets within 3 feet of me when I've made the decision to execute one of my tasks. You protect that task. You treat that task as an activity that must happen. So it's a mindset change. And who are the 5 people supporting you?
I agree with that.
Steve and Sean, I want to say something. I've been in the business real estate for close to 17 years, and I had to move from Chicago real estate to San Diego with my family over 6 years ago. So I had to really think how to do well here. I realized that the moment that I think about money or how much I'm making money, that's when I fail. I have to every day think about how many people I'm able to help. That's all I'm going to be thinking. If I think the moment how much value I'm going to sell or how much money I'm going to make, that's when I fail. So my goal is every day I don't think about the money, which is very hard because sometimes we need the money, of course.
Right.
But that has really helped me in the last 6 years to survive in San Diego real estate.
The great thing about that isn't whether you think about money or people. What's great is that you figured out what works for you.
That's right. Sure.
Like that's what Steve said. Like we have to know our vision. You have to know what it is that does motivate you or scares you, depending on what you're drawn to or what. But that's the big jump that you made. The leap you made was knowing what you need.
Well, sure. Isn't it true that when you focus on money, you tend to not always, but you tend to be focusing on the outcome? Because that's what that is. The outcome is the money you earn.
Correct.
Look, people will, whether you believe me or not, I hope, or trust me a little, I hope you'll trust me a lot when I say real estate is not a people business. It's a task business.
Oh.
Let me repeat that. Real estate's a task business more than it's a people business. You have to show up and take care of people. I'm not saying that you don't treat people, that people aren't a part of the process.
Right.
But if you focus on people before the task, you will never achieve. Go ahead, Christina.
Oh, so what I was going to say is when I would set goals for times for many years, I'd never hit my goals. And I got to a point, I went to John Maxwell and I took a lot of leadership training, different things like that, and started really talking to people. And a lot of times I think that when you set goals, you have to really work backwards from the goal and figure out what those micro tasks are, like you guys are saying. But I think a lot of times people aren't doing enough of those tasks to hit their goals because the numbers don't work out, right? Like you have to talk to 5 people a day, right? Like the five, you know what I mean? But you're able to find a coach or talk to Sean or Steve and sit down and go, hey, these are my goals. And then they can really help you with those numbers to figure out what you would seriously be willing to do what it is, I promise. But again, it's going back to, if you want to make say $1 million this year, what do you have to do on a daily basis, tasks wise, to be able to do that. And then you focus on the task versus the goal, and the goal just happens. It's really cool. But but you have to actually figure out what those micro tasks that you're doing on a daily basis and really stay consistent to be able to hit those goals. And so for me, a couple years ago, my husband and I would do these dream boards and we'd make these goals and we'd do all this stuff and we never hit. And then we were able to, I figured out this aha situation. And then consistently every year we're exceeding or going past these goals because we actually know what we need to do on a daily basis. And I think that's really important, is that knowledge and understanding that. So that's just my 2 cents on that. So
that's a great comment.
It is. And I love that you have the board because we're visual. We need to see it, just like I think you were saying, Steve, it has to be written down, or maybe Larry, you were saying it from Tony Robbins. That's it.
Yeah.
And then you use the word that makes my heart sing every single time: consistency. It's moderate consistency that beats great intensity every single time.
Thanks, Diane. Well, listen, Sean, you said something, and I know we're past time, but I just want to make this comment too, and that is that each one of us on this call is a miracle. The fact that you're alive is a miracle when you think about the odds of you being here. And I think of a friend of mine that who I know personally, who you've probably heard of, maybe. He's one of the best motivational speakers I know of, and he lived in my hometown of Detroit for a number of years, and the person's name is Les Brown. Now, Les Brown is one of the greatest motivational speakers I've ever heard. But I would encourage all of you, if you have a moment today, to go to YouTube and just Google, or I should say, search on YouTube for Les Brown. You have greatness within you. And listen to him tell his story. And when you understand that a small African-American kid born as a twin who was labeled educable, mentally retarded, and was put back several times in grade school to becoming a state legislator for the state of Ohio, and the person he is today, when you hear him speak, he is hardly anything but an educated, intelligent human being. But he had people around him that didn't see this in him, and they started labeling him. This is a kid that was born on an abandoned floor in an apartment in Miami, one of the worst suburbs of Miami, and made it to be the person he is today, arguably one of the greatest motivational. His story, if Les Brown can be the person he is today through perseverance and surrounding himself with positive people to help him achieve his goals. Listen to him tell the story about how he wanted to be a radio disc jockey and how he pulled that off. That was his dream, was to be on radio and be a disc jockey. Maybe some of you have heard the story. It is amazing what he did and how he made that dream a reality. Not by what people thought of him or what people were telling him he could or couldn't do. He had all that as early part of his life, and it wasn't positive. And yet he found a way to break through. If Les Brown can do it, there's not a person out here that can't do it. You have greatness within you. And that's the story he preaches. Each one of you have something great within you. Connect with it. Have a relationship with it. Have the goals. Write them down. Have a relationship with the goal. And then have an accountability partner. And don't let anyone near you that's not there to support you. If someone looks at you and says, nah, I don't know, man. That seems pretty that doesn't seem realistic to me. Thank you. Use that as fuel, motivation, and go back and find that person who's going to say, here's what you need to do today. Now go get it, right? Get a coach. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I have to say. But you have, each one of us have greatness within us, and you need to tap into it to be who you're supposed to be.